Hello and welcome everyone to MyFusion Helper. My name is Troy Broussard, and in this short video I'm going to show you how to integrate Webinar Jam with your Infusionsoft account and add some functionality that isn't available directly within Webinar Jam. Now, Webinar Jam does have a built-in integration with Infusionsoft. It automatically tags people for attended and not attended with your selection in their interface. So we don't try to duplicate any of the functionality that they already have, but we do add and extend to the functionality, and this has been a feature that we've had many of you request on the help desk, so we're happy to roll this into the app. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is just start off with a walkthrough of how it works and how to set it up inside of MyFusion Helper, and then after we complete that, the next thing we're going to do is show you how to integrate that inside of Infusionsoft to deploy it. And then lastly, we're just going to talk about some of the advantages of using this over their default built-in integration and some of the ways our clients are using it as well. All right, so let's dive right in and start with the application. Okay, here we are inside of MyFusion Solutions and the MyFusion Helper app. I'm going to go ahead and create a new type, and we're going to pick Webinar Jam as the type. And we can go ahead then and select a name for it. So we'll just do WJ Test for Webinar Jam Test. Now, I just want to point out, with any of our helpers, you can either select them from the drop-down or type in the name to go right to them to quick search and find them. It's also important that you recognize that you can watch the training video right here. Now, this training video will adapt based on the helper that you've selected. Now we go ahead and hit configure the helper, and at this point you're going to have the ability to add a Webinar Jam account. Now, I've already got an account set up, but I want to show you how this would work so that you know how to do it. So you click add Webinar Jam account, and the first thing is this account name. Now, this account name really doesn't matter, so you can put anything in here you want. It does have to be unique, however. So if you have multiple Webinar Jam accounts, which some of you are using because you have multiple business entities and you run them through different accounts, you can do that. But in order to do that, they must have different names. Now, the API key is something that you have to grab for your Webinar Jam account. So you have to log into your Webinar Jam account and locate the API key and paste it in here. Now, let me show you how that's done. It's a little bit tricky inside of Webinar Jam to find this, and for brevity purposes on this video, I'm not going to walk you through all the steps to get to here because it just is very tedious. But when you log in, you have to go in and edit an existing webinar. So if it's the first webinar, just create one as a test and then go to edit on it. And then they walk you through this interface that allows you to click the confirm and the next buttons down here at the bottom, and you'll just step through until, if you look here closely at the top, you'll see the steps from configuration to presenters to registration to notifications, and then finally you arrive here on integrations. Integrations is where you'll find your API key. So you click on integrations, and then you want to expand this API custom integrations drop down or accordion, and what you'll see there is you'll see the API key as you see on the screen, and that is the API key that you want to copy and paste into our app. So now when we switch back here, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this because I'm assuming that you went through there and pasted in your API key here to the account key, and then go ahead and say return to config. Okay, so after that, you'll select your account. So here's the one that I have pre-set up. And then you'll also just select the webinar that you'd like to register for. You can just type that in or grab it from the drop down. So we'll just grab one here and pull that in. We've got a test one. And now, once we do that, we will look at what session they would like to register for. So we can grab the session that's set up here, and then we can scroll down here, and here's where you see some of your options. You have the ability to save any of these that you like into custom fields within Infusionsoft. So now, after we set our fields, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that, then we would go next to create the helper. And at this point, you're going to have a link that you can copy in to use within Infusionsoft. And from there, it's the same as setting up any of our other helpers, but we'll go ahead and demonstrate that to you inside of Infusionsoft now so you can see how to do this. The first thing, however, would be to copy that link to the clipboard. Okay, as we switch into Infusionsoft, the first thing that we're going to want to do is use that link that we just copied from MyFusion Helper and deploy it into the registration here in Infusionsoft. Now, typically you're going to be using some type of a web form or landing page. Maybe you roll your own with lead pages. Maybe you use one on a pop-up on your website. Perhaps you use your own with Thrive Themes or Optimized Press or any of the other landing page software available. You're probably not using the Infusionsoft web forms, but you could be. Either way, that's going to be where everything starts. But then once they opt in, we want to come in here and we want to call the API call, and we want to paste in that link from MyFusion Helper and then go ahead and say ready. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to automatically register that person inside of Webinar Jam, and it's also going to populate all of the custom fields that you have mapped out. Now, I want to highlight this because this is a best practice and something that I highly recommend doing to avoid any difficulties or problems. Sometimes there can be a little bit of latency with external posts and Infusionsoft. It's just the nature of the beast, because when we make an HTTP post, it's not like applying a tag inside of Infusionsoft. This actually, Infusionsoft is now contacting our service runs, and then it comes back. And so sometimes there can be a slight delay. And so what I recommend doing is to put a 1-minute delay timer after this post has been made before sending out the email that merges in the fields. And that just gives you just a slight delay. It's not going to be enough that's going to cause any issue with mail delivery or anything else. However, it's just enough to give a little breather time after the post to make sure everything is posted in those custom fields properly before merging in and sending out the email. This is a very common practice with the API, and in fact, if you're making 2 API calls together, we always recommend making one call, a 1-minute timer, and then the second API call. It's something that it just kind of alleviates some of those issues. Now, it used to be a lot worse about a year, 18 months ago. Infusionsoft made some changes to improve that, but even today, I still recommend doing this 1-minute timer trick. All right, so now we have them registered. And what this allows you to do is use anything you want to register them instead of just the forms and provided through Webinar Jam. You can design your own and do pop-ups on your site and everything else. Now, here's a really neat little trick with that. Because we can register somebody through that simple API goal, we can do the same thing, and I connected at the wrong spot here. So let me delete that and reconnect it where it should be. But I can do the same thing with a one-click email registration. So let's say that I'm running cold traffic and I'm sending them to an opt-in. I can run those through this path. But now I also want to promote the Webinar Jam event to my live list. Well, to my list, I can send them an email and say, if you'd like to join this webinar, you can register with one click here. And then I can link that and apply a tag. That tag could be this tag right here, which would then automatically drop them into this sequence and apply the registration HTTP post and sign them up. This is a nice little shortcut. We do the same thing with GoToWebinar as well, allowing you to one-click register if you're already on the list. And that's a key benefit of either platform, but it's a key benefit of doing the registration through the API as opposed to doing it through a web form. If you just use the default registrations of GoToWebinar or default registration forms from Webinar Jam, then you're forced to send people through that opt-in. But using the API approach through us, you're able to do these one clicks. Now, I want to be very clear on this. This means that you could actually automatically opt people in without even telling them. And clearly, we would not recommend you doing that. So, use this wisely and don't do bad marketing practices that are going to get you in trouble. There are a couple times, however, that this does make sense. Many times people after purchase will deliver a bonus webinar training, and you can just auto-register them for that and say thank you for your purchase, and for your convenience, we've also registered you for our upcoming live training bonus et cetera, right? So there are some cases like that where it could make sense, especially if it's a service product that has a fulfillment and you want to just auto-register them after purchase into your fulfillment services that are delivered through Webinar Jam. That's another case in point. Now we would send them through the regular email, and our warm-up sequence now will now be able to reference the join link to remind them. We'll be able to put it in all those emails so that they can see that. As long as we've saved it in our configuration within MyFusion Helper, they'll be able to merge it in here into your emails. Now, then you're going to have the typical attended or didn't attend tags, and those are not set through our integration. Those are set directly through Webinar Jam. And once those hit, you'll again be able to drive them through the attended and the no-show replay sequences, all of which, of course, are driving to a purchase. Now, the reason I connect this purchase here as well, for those of you that are not familiar, is that if they make a purchase on the webinar, it will pull them out of these sequences automatically. And so even if later the tag gets applied, it'll get applied, but they've already purchased the goal here, so they would not get any of this additional marketing, and it's not necessary because they already purchased. So that's kind of the reason that the structure is set up the way I did here. So registration is very simplistic. Simply copy and paste in the link, and then if you want to do a one-click, provide a one-click path via a tag as well. All right, so let's switch back into the presentation and talk about just some of the benefits and examples of this that can be useful in your business. So obviously we just talked about the one-click no opt-in registrations. Now obviously it's no opt-in for your list. Anybody that's not on your list would have to go through a web form opt-in, but for people that are already opted into your list, it's a great way of boosting your attendance, getting more engagement on your webinars, and providing more value to your existing customers. Even if they've already bought the product that you're selling, if you're delivering a webinar through Webinar Jam that really provides value and training, they're still going to appreciate that no matter what. Now, the second thing is the auto registration that I talked about. This is something we see some of our service providers use to deliver training and bonuses after purchase. They can auto register somebody there by simply just calling that HTTP post and setting that person up right inside of the fulfillment campaign after purchase. Again, be very careful about auto registering people because that can be a real problematic approach in your marketing. So just make sure you do it as a courtesy and not as something that is, marketing spam, right? That's not what you want to be doing. It's going to hurt your reputation with your list. And then obviously this last key piece of the integration is being able to save additional data such as the join links into custom fields so that you can then merge them and do all of your email follow-up through that and have that ability to provide more custom and direct email marketing through Infusionsoft as opposed to only being able to use the emails through Webinar Jam. So those are some of the most common uses of the features that we have, and hopefully that will help you and get you going. If you need any help further than that, please reach us on the help desk at help@myfusionsolutions.com.